Welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Romano. In today's video, we are going to be talking about 3 different questions and the future of cryptocurrency as we know it. I'm not psychic. I don't know someone in the government. I don't know anyone that's famous or that's connected to the industry. I simply am looking at the situation with a logical mind, and I'm answering these 3 questions. Before we continue the video, please remember to do thumbs up. It's right there. It doesn't hurt to press it. Please press it. And if you like my content, to subscribe to my channel because it will really help me out. The first question is, if China and Russia are joining together to create their own cryptocurrency, which they'll probably peg it to gold or to have somehow gold attached to it. China has been purchasing gold bullion for quite some time now, and they have been stocking up on it. So the question is, if they've been talking about this for quite some time, and they are the type of governments that they want control over everything and everyone, and they have thousands of cameras on every neighborhood, then the alternative would be also to control the currency to the extreme, and that's what cryptocurrency is to a government. And what they could do, they could turn it on and off for whoever they want. It's very scary. How would the US government turn around and deal with the situation? Wouldn't they also come up with their own cryptocurrency and probably back it by gold? And or is it some kind of product that's also backed by maybe multiple commodities? Who knows what's going to happen in this near future? But you have to also answer the question with the Treasury market. The Treasury market is now what we understand as the biggest issue, and the reason and the result to that issue is our government. Of course, they're always so resilient and they always handle a situation at the last minute. And they always really do a great job of it. And so what they're going to be doing with the Treasury market, as China and the world pulls out of the Treasury market, the US government agreed now to come in as buyer of last resort, just like they do on the stock market and so forth. That's their role in our country, to make sure that markets are stable. But where are they getting the money for this? They have to print that money and again start the cycle all over again. So if they're going to print more money to deal with the Treasury issue, and other countries having to sell the treasuries because they have issues themselves in their own country, you have to remember, when a country expands for 20 years so fast, the collapse that happens is enormous. And that's just how it is normally. And also, remember in Japan in the 80s, when they started to take over our electronics sector, and they put a lot of companies out of business, such as Zenith and RCA and all these companies, overnight they couldn't survive because of the taxation system, the interest rates to borrow money, and etc. And so Japan evidently took over that market very fast. And the moment that the US economy started to go down, Japan started to see a really bad market outlook. They started to have a collapse. And so it's ironic, once again, not only is the American government there to protect the world and other governments and other borders, but they are also in a way responsible which country becomes wealthy and prosperous based on you and me buying their products. And so it's always about a trade issue. And right now, as I mentioned in other videos, that trade issue is going to be fixed now. And mark my words, it is going to be fixed. The government can no longer defend its interests around the world like it once did. And they're pulling back now because those interests are changing. Now it's no longer being the policeman of the world, but when the war starts, they're going to help other countries defend themselves, whether it's through military weapons or actual boots on the ground or whatever it may be. But it affects the world, and it affects we the people. So as our government has to print more money to deal with the Treasury market, and also with the ideology of possibly creating a future cryptocurrency, how are they going to come about by doing this? Well, let's just answer this question. Where did cryptocurrency come from? If you know your history, it was a government program during the Cold War era in the United States that the government was funding different technologies and products and systems and computer systems, computer programs, etc., to combat the Cold War era. And that's where we get the internet. The internet was a government program. Originally, it was created for the government to respond together on a very top secret type of system. But when the Cold War ended, so did that interest. And those people who created that and knew about that, they created the internet in our era. Cryptocurrency was also created then. The actual idea was founded back at that time period, during the Cold War era and at the end of it. So that would have been a payment system for the military and the government to have a private type of payment system. But with the advent of the Cold War ending, that became in the public eye. Now, what was really interesting is that it took a long time for it to come out to the public. I don't know why that was, but if you think about it, from 1994 to 2004, it was really the first 10 years of the technology era as we know it. We the people, how we communicated, etc. And so it took a while for us to get used to that new form of communication and to trust it, and also trust computers. Once that trust was developed and technology started to improve and it was cheaper, then all of a sudden cryptocurrency is pushed in our face. I remember reading in the magazine called Institutional Trader, which my friend Lucy bought me for a year subscription when I was completing my PhD. And when I saw the Bitcoin on the cover of that magazine, I said, this is the future, and it is the most incredible concept to be a part of. And it would have been really successful to get in at that time. But of course I listened to a stupid friend, which I don't talk to anymore because of that. And I learned from that lesson, always trust yourself. So how would the government, so now that cryptocurrency is out in the public, and the public has been, improving it and creating it, well, what happens in the future is that the government always starts to regulate a product. And so now what you're going to see is they're going to start regulating like they are, but are they going to play a role in dealing with our own currency and somehow attaching it to our own US dollar, making, let's say, an American cryptocurrency for everyone to use? So now they pushed it in our face with the public sector, but guaranteed they're going to take it over just like Asia and Russia is. Now, what's very scary about this is that if Russia and Asia are going to back it by gold to make it appealing, because remember, the US currency is still the world's currency. They made that agreement in 1945 during the era when we created the atomic bomb. That's how we won the war, and that's how we became a superpower. And we would always agree as a country, our currency would never have a default. In other words, we would never default on our payments. Because of that, all they have to do is print more money to pay for the debt. But now they realize if Asia and Russia is going to have gold in some way backing their cryptocurrency, then of course the US government has to do that. It's mandatory because of the agreement in the world. And the more countries that go with Russia and Asia, well, it doesn't mean that it's bad for us. It's actually good for us because we will have less competition as American manufacturing to manufacture things in the world. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have one type of group of governments that are going to support each other, and the other type of group is going to be with us. Now, we already know who those people are. It's in the media. It's not something private. And so you have to think logically. If the government has a huge deficit, number one, and they have to keep printing money now because of the Treasury market to become the buyer of last resort, then the alternative would be to regulate cryptocurrency, like now what they're going to do because of Sam Bankman and the fraud that he created. The fraud that he created, it was just, I couldn't believe it. Where was the audit company? Where was the administrator? Where was the accountant? Just because it's a cryptocurrency trading company and an investment company, weren't there regulations? This is incredible how that happened. And I almost feel like it was intentionally that happened because of it was just bad management. And it's also astonishing that those investment banks that gave so much money to someone in there, he was 22. Could you imagine that people's pensions at investment banks and other companies, family offices, whoever gave him money? So the real estate markets, of course, is going down now. We've seen its cycle end and the government initiative end, okay? From 1994 and on until today, they could no longer keep interest rates so low. And now, because of the Treasury market, other governments are dumping the Treasuries. So what does the government have to do? They have to raise interest rates to make it more appealing for people like you and me to buy those Treasuries as a savings bond at the bank. So in order to make that really appealing, the interest rates will have to stay high until they've stabilized the Treasury market and China and the rest of those countries stop selling their percentage of treasuries. How is the government going to stimulate the economy if they can't lower interest rates? I'm making a whole video about this. It's taxation. Income tax will have to go away or be reduced dramatically in order to stimulate the economy for the next 4 to 8 years. So you are either going to see a huge tax benefit, like a huge tax deduction, or possibly they do away with income tax. Income tax was only created because of two things. It was sold to us as they had to pay for the war, World War I, and they increased it a huge amount, but that wasn't true. The real fact is that if they were going to print more money, they needed someone to pay for that interest, and that's through taxation. So if you get rid of taxation, how would they pay the interest on those bonds? Well, they would have to put tariffs. So you mark my words, when they put tariffs even higher, and the fact that the dollar is becoming watered down as they print more money, then it's going to be harder to buy products outside the country. It's going to be more expensive for us, which is really good for the American business companies and America's business people, because you could produce a product here in America with a 3D printer. It only costs $300,000 for one printer, and you could print thousands of, whether it's metal, ceramics, plastics, etc. So you don't need 1,000 people in a factory. In Asia, they don't have thousands of people in those factories producing whatever little product it is. It's only 10, 20 people. But there's multiple companies. So for example, if you're a Mormon and you have 20 kids, well, you are going to benefit the most from that. Or if you're Italian and you have 10 kids, you are going to benefit from that as well because you have cousins that could help, and you could create this factory and everyone could join in helping. So, and it doesn't cost a lot, because what does a warehouse cost? You go to a small town, you buy land for $100,000, build a warehouse for $70,000, and then you have to buy the 3D printers or whatever you're going to make. And so that's my understanding, using an analysis, just a logical mind of the future and how the future is going to play out. When and if they get rid of taxation, meaning income tax, to stimulate the economy because they can't lower interest rates, because they need people to buy the government's debt, etc. How do you take back the money that was lost over 30, 40 years that was given to other countries in the form of, you make our products and we will buy them? So in other words, America became poor and poor and poor for 40 years since Richard Nixon signed that trade deal. And Bill Clinton, he couldn't do anything about it because of the agreements that were made. So he created a real estate bubble, and they started to make it easy for people to buy houses and to go to college. And they lowered interest rates. So that cycle has ended. So if I were you, I wouldn't waste your time in college. I would waste your time going for either entrepreneurship if you do go to college, or possibly doing some kind of, I would focus on graphic design. Because think about how many products that have to be made here in America, and how many companies are going to be hiring people or outsourcing, how many people that know how to use a computer to create a 3D model of a product. Because once you have that 3D model, then you could just put it in the printer and print it out. So that's going to be a very hot focus on an industry that's growing back here in America. Secondly, think about all the equipment that is going to be made in America. So just sewing machines, for example. Singer used to be an incredible company, but because the garment industry going to Asia, no one was buying Singers anymore. So think about, in those terms, how many products, how many manufacturing pieces of equipment do certain factories actually need. I want to thank you so much for watching my video. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and please do thumbs up. It's right there. It doesn't hurt to press it, and it will really help me out to push the algorithm, to push my videos higher. Thank you so much.